Hello and welcome to Transplant's Take on Sport. My name's Lewis Daniels and my guest today is Kieran McLean, a kidney transplant recipient, Twitch streamer and YouTuber. Kieran chats to me about his battle with FSGS and how that and dialysis affected his life and ability to play sport leading up to his transplant, as well as some of the adaptations he made to continue playing football and cricket for as long as possible. Kieran live streams himself playing games on Twitch and posts videos about kidney disease, amongst other things, on his YouTube channel, so please stick around to find out more about that and how you can get involved with an upcoming stream. If you're enjoying the podcast, please make sure you press subscribe or follow wherever you normally listen so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like to follow the podcast on social media, all the links will be in the show notes. Kieran McLean, welcome to Transplant's Take on Sport.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
It's great to have you on. We actually met in what our hospital that we were at, I've now moved from, called the Continuing Care Clinic, and which means that we had our transplants quite close together. There's about 3 weeks between us. So when this goes out, I'm going to be 2 days off 2 years with a transplant. You'll be about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Our journeys up to that point were a bit different. When did you first discover that there was something wrong with your kidneys?
So for me, I first diagnosed with kidney disease in 2012. It was June of 2012. I just turned 30. Well, no, sorry, I'd just not far off turned 13, and it was in the summer. It was quite sudden. I was fine the weekend before, and it was on the Monday morning. I woke up one morning and I was just swollen all over my body, head to toe. So I was rushed into hospital, my local hospital, Warrington, and that's where I had tests done. I was in A&E for about 12 hours, which I was eventually diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome at that point.
On the A&E thing, I read your story that you sent me through that you'd done with Share Your Wishes, and we'd both got told similar things. When I was at the GP, and they said, you've got unexpectedly low kidney function, you've got to go to A&E now. Do you remember what you were thinking at that point when you were told to go there?
I just thought, I didn't know what to think, to be honest, because before that, I was quite a healthy kid. I had never really gone to hospital, other than for like the odd torn ligament or broken bone, typical A&E visits. I didn't really know what to think. I was a bit worried because I was not really good with the unknown. I just kind of blew it over my head at first, thinking, oh, I'll be in and out and I'll be fine tomorrow. But once they started giving me medication and I realised it wasn't going away, that's when the panic started kicking in, to be honest, and a bit of the worry.
This is that fear of the unknown. I was similar going to A&E. You thankfully got away in the evening. But to be fair, had been there by the sound of it longer than I had. I arrived at about 6:30 and didn't leave until about 48 hours later. Did you have anyone with you there for support?
Yeah, luckily I had my mum with me. I must have gone in. It was a school morning, so I woke up for school about 7 o'clock. Then I was hoping the swelling would go down or something, because I just thought it was a hot night. It was in June. I just thought it was a bad reaction to the heat. When I realised that I didn't feel great and felt sick and everything, I must have been in A&E for about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I was there till about 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. So at that point, I was put on steroid treatment. But yeah, so I was in there for about 10 to 12 hours, but luckily there wasn't any overnight stay.
I was there with a couple of my flatmates. I was 2 hours away from home at the time, so I was phoning my parents. We didn't really know what was going on. I've often mentioned before on here, we should have like a Top Gear power lap blood pressure chart for first diagnosis. Do you remember what yours was at the time?
I wish I did. I would have been curious to know, but no, I don't actually know. It must have been way in the 200. It was very high, 200 plus, 100 plus something, but I don't know off the top of my head.
So it'll be up. It's got to be up there.
Yeah,
everyone
it
I've
was
spoken
very.
to so far said it's the first number is well in the 200s.
Yes, definitely.
You had nephrotic syndrome, and eventually you did get a diagnosis of why that was. Do you want to tell us more a bit about that?
So the more specific diagnosis is FSGS, which stands for, forgive me if I get this wrong, but it's like focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. So basically, after a kidney biopsy, I was it found out that there was a lot of scarring on the tissue and the filters within the kidneys. So that's where the protein leakage was coming from. So we figured out that was the problem, but we don't actually know how that happened, whether it was a DNA thing, it was something I was born with and it only didn't kick in till I was 13, or whether it was a bad reaction to something. So we still don't know the reason why it happened, but we know how the nephrotic syndrome was started, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. And then with the FSGS, nephrotic syndrome, how did that affect you when you were still in your teens at school?
Well, I wasn't too bad at first because my kidney function. There's another thing I don't know off the top of my head, but I was still at about 40-50% kidney function when I was first diagnosed. So it didn't affect me like physically anyway. It was more the fact that I was immediately put on a high dosage of steroids to try and treat it, and that's where the swelling in my face and everything. I'm sure most people listening to this know the bad reactions you can have to steroids, where you get the moon face, the swelling. So being 13, 14 at the time and going to school, um, I did get a lot of bad looks from people because they weren't really sure what was going on with me. Um, I wasn't too bad health wise for about the first 6 to 12 months, just other than a bit of fatigue and tiredness. But that's when I started becoming quite sick as my kidney function got worse and worse. So I ended up with more and more time off school. So it was a bit of a ride, but things eventually mellowed out more like towards dialysis. It became because I was seeing the hospital more frequently then.
Something I forgot to ask before we come on to dialysis. For those who might not be aware, I know it's a mouthful, FSGS, when when it's put into its long form. What is FSGS?
So FSGS is a type of nephrotic syndrome. So there's different causes of nephrotic syndrome. One of them being FSGS. So this is FSGS is more like the cause of the scarring. So it's an autoimmune disease. So your immune system attacks your body, leaving scarring on the kidneys, which then leads to protein leakage and waste being retained in the blood. So it's an autoimmune disease, but like I said before, I don't know what caused my FSGS. That's just how what FSGS is.
And with dialysis, what type did you go on, and what was that a hard decision?
It was quite hard, but at the time when I was put on dialysis, uh, I was on first of all I was on peritoneal dialysis. I was on that for just over 2 years. Started in June 2017 and then had my transplant August 2019. So I was first put on it when I was at Alder Hay because I was in paediatric care at that point. Um, they they went through both like with me whether I was to go hemo peritoneal, and with my age at the time, I was like, let me get this right. I was about 18 at the time. I figured out that peritoneal was the best choice for me as it was 8 hours every night when I was on it. Um, so it kind of fitted in with my typical teenage life. I'd probably stay up quite late with my mates on Xbox playing games. So I'd just put myself on the dialysis machine and stay up to the early hours of the morning with my friends. And at that point, I'd done my session, so I could just detach myself, go into bed, and then sleep until about lunchtime the next day. So that kind of fitted quite well with my lifestyle at that moment.
It does seem flexible going on to peritoneal dialysis. I'm still very glad I managed to avoid it, and hopefully, if it comes to this transplant going the other way in the future, I hope I avoid it again. But coming on to sport, were you always into sport and exercise growing up?
I would like to think I was quite a sporty kid. I started off, I did rugby, football, and cricket. You know, at the young age where you had your football on a Saturday and your rugby on a Sunday. Um, but then obviously, I don't know whether it was the same for you, but once you hit a certain age, I kind of forgot what that age is. Um, all sport, like your football and your rugby, ends up on a Sunday. So
Mhm.
at that point, a lot of people had to choose between football and rugby. So I leant towards football because I felt better at football. I started off as a goalkeeper, so I'd play for my local team as the goalkeeper, and that's what I did for about 6, 7 years. And I really enjoyed being a goalkeeper. But yeah, so I did football and cricket were my main two sports, and I continued specifically football into my kidney disease, whereas cricket maybe for about a year afterwards. But after that, I kind of mellowed out of cricket.
Let's go on to that now. Then onto the cricket. Did you sort of slow down because of your illness, or was it just a natural? What's the right word here? The interest drops a bit, and you pick one sport. Other things become a priority.
Yeah, it was a bit of both, to be honest. I think it was more the main reason was a lot of my friends started losing interest, I think, in it. So the team became quite short. We're struggling for a team. I think at our age group, it kind of just stopped because we couldn't get enough people. But a lot of my friends lost interest, and at that age, you tend to just do what your friends do, don't you? So I kind of mellowed out of cricket and then just kind of put all my focus into football. That was about age 14, I want to say. I was about 14 at that point.
I'd have thought cricket. I mean, perfectly valid reasons. Personally, I played football and cricket as well. Rugby, I never really got into. I've mentioned before on this that I'm 5'10" and 10 stone, so I'm not really built that well for rugby. Not particularly quick either. Cricket, I managed to keep going longer than football. I know you said you were playing it for about a year into your kidney disease.
hmm
What was your role within the cricket team, and did you have to adapt in any way to keep it going?
So my main role was we had two teams running, the A team and the B team, typically. I was in the B team, but I was more like the captain because I don't know if it's the same for you. The cricket team tend to run over between 2 to 3 age groups
Yep.
when you're
Yeah.
younger. So I was like the top age group, and I would tend to captain younger the younger players that were like the best of their age group, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So they kind of had someone to look up to, had the experience. So I was most likely the captain. Um, uh, I was definitely more of a bowler and fielder. I was more towards the bottom of the line when it came to batting. I wasn't a great batsman. Um, so I was more a bowler and a fielder. When it came to fielding, I was more like deep towards the boundaries because I was good at that sweeping, and I had one of the longest throws. So that was mainly my role within the cricket team.
Would you like to get back into it at any point? Or are you cricket or football? Or any other
Um,
sports?
it's they've definitely crossed my mind, especially football, because I used to love football. At the moment, my fitness is the worst it's ever been, so I think I'd probably have to improve my fitness quite a bit before I got back into sport. But never say never. It's something I'm definitely wanting to try and get back into down the line. Just not
Absolutely.
sure when.
Hopefully, hopefully soon. Hopefully we don't go the wrong way again in terms of this pandemic. But
hmm
fingers crossed. On the topic of cricket, while we're here, I'd like to thank Neon Cricket, who've kindly sponsored me for this year as a coaching ambassador. If you'd like to get some cricket equipment or clothing or some sort of bag that you can take to the gym for yourself, not just cricket equipment, if you go to neoncricket.co.uk and use the code LewisD25, you can get yourself 25% off. And I've been playing or playing men's cricket for 8 years now, and it's genuinely the best kit I've ever used. So I highly recommend it. So if you want to go and get that, it's neoncricket.co.uk, and Lewis D25 gets you 25% off. We'll come back to the football now. How regularly were you able to do that with your kidney disease? And similar to cricket, did you adapt in any way to keep going?
So with my cricket, for football, sorry, with my football, I was a goalkeeper per pre-kidney disease,
Hmm.
but with my first team, it was a similar to the cricket. A lot of people ended up moving to rugby at that stage. The team became quite short, and I think it kind of just dropped off. So at that point, I joined another local team, which were looking for players, and a few of my friends played for them. So when I played for my first team, like I mentioned before, I was the goalkeeper. But when I moved to this other team, I wanted to try something new. So I ended up becoming the left winger because I think at that age, it was mainly because I was left footed
Yeah.
and I was quite quick. Um, So that's all you really need for a winger at that age. um, so I gave that a go. Luckily for my coaches there, thank God, they were fully understanding of my health as it became worse and worse. So I'd start off playing 4 games, but then to adapt to my health, I'd end up doing maybe half a game, or because at that age you can sub them back on. You kind of had unlimited subs. I'd maybe do 20 minutes in the first half, come off, then 20 minutes in the second half. So my coaches were quite open and discussed it with me with my health and how comfortable I felt playing. So they just always inform me and let me know, like, if you want to play, just let us know how much you want to play, how much you feel comfortable playing, and it worked quite well. It was just up until I got to, like, it must have been a year or two before dialysis, when I just felt so unfit and unhealthy, mainly because of my health, that I kind of gave up football at that point.
I could feel it similar to you, where as my condition got gradually worse, I would play less minutes in football. I actually stopped it before cricket, only by about 2 or 3 months, but stopped it slightly earlier. And how important was it to have, like I had, understanding? Well, it was uni football. Then we didn't have a coach. Understanding teammates, coaches, people around you.
It was, honestly, I couldn't have asked her for anything better. I feel like I would have stopped football far sooner if they weren't as understanding. Um, Especially a couple of my best friends played for the team that I moved to, that I met in high school. So they were the most understanding. I think how it kind of fell quite nicely is one of their dads was one of the coaches too. So I think that helped also. It was very helpful to have the coach's understanding. Um, but yeah, it's definitely easier. And like I said before, I would have given up football far sooner if it wasn't for the understanding of the team and the coaches.
It's so key to have people who understand your condition around you. I find it cricket again, my main sport. If the captain and coaches know what you're going through, they can help to manage it well. I I've probably said this before as well, but just bowling shorter spells, less balls, fielding in the right position, so you don't not got to run as far, can keep yourself going and keep you included for as long as possible to feel like part of the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned stopping before dialysis. Was there any way you were able to keep fit, whether that be through sport or otherwise, walking, running, any other activities that you could just to keep your fitness topped up on dialysis?
Um, at that point, my fitness was like way out the room.
It's understandable.
Yeah, so I kind of just stopped the football, but the I kept like walking and everything just to try and keep my fitness at some sort of level. Um, as for running and everything, I tried running, but after I'd had like several surgeries and stuff, because I feel like once you've had surgeries and recovered from it, it's kind of hard to get your fitness back up. I really struggled with my fitness. So I felt more comfortable just sticking to the minimal fitness that I could, with it being mainly walking, and I did a bit of cycling. They were my two sources of fitness when I was on dialysis.
I've noticed a lot of people through this saying that it's difficult to build your fitness back up after it's been after transplant, but as you said, after surgery. Am I right in thinking you had a kidney removed?
Yes, I did. I had that at the same time that I had my dialysis tube, my peritoneal dialysis tube put in. So what actually happened with that is I went in for for this procedure to have the nephrectomy and the dialysis catheter inserted. So it was kind of a two in one operation. The original plan was to have it done, have stay over one night, just make sure obviously my obs and my bloods were okay. Then to go home, and then to come back in over the next few weeks to have training for my peritoneal dialysis to be able to do it from home. However, once they took my one of my native kidneys out, my kidney function dropped to about 8% when it
Yeah.
was about the 14, 15. Um, so at that point, they were like, right, they've got no choice but to keep you in until you're trained on peritoneal dialysis. So I was in hospital at that point for 2.5 weeks. Uh, trying to recover, yet trying to train for the dialysis. Because at first it was such a sudden change in my kidney function. They ended up having to do the dialysis. It started off 20 hours a day, down to 18, up until I got to 10 hours a day. Then that's when I started the training for about a week. And then once I got home, it was 8 hours every night, up until my transplant. So it was quite an intrusive and invasive dialysis whilst recovering from like surgery and everything. So I think that's where my fitness mainly took its hit, and it was after after that operation, plus trying to do dialysis, where I really struggled with my fitness.
20 hours is a lot. It's a long time. And having a kidney removed, I didn't even think, but having you are going to lose a lot of kidney function when you get down to that level of like 8%, which is about what I finished on. It is very, very hard to do any sort of exercise. Even walking becomes difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they expected that to happen because they just thought the kidneys were like null and void at that point. So I think that it took that there was a bit of a shock for them when they realised that my kidney function had halved. Even though you'd logically think that if you take half your
Yeah.
kidneys away, half your function's going to go. But yeah, so it went a bit off plan, but we got over it. It just kind of hit my fitness quite hard.
Before we come on to your transplant story, I, we've got a listener question that I thought we discuss. It's an interesting one, slightly different to what we normally get. If you'd like to get your question featured on the podcast, if you go and follow on social media, Facebook and Instagram are at Transplants Take on Sport Pod, and Twitter is at TTOS Pod. I'll put a post out the day before recording. You'll find out who's on the day before, what's coming up, and there'll be a little question box on Instagram. If you put your question in there, there's a chance for you to feature on the podcast. And this week we have a question from Martino, who says, "What are the best and worst sports to play as a kidney transplant recipient?" Now, I don't know about you. This is going to be this is a matter of opinion, and I'm going to take it based on best and worst in terms of safety, because the best is just what you enjoy the most. The worst is what you enjoy the least.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Well, there's like you said, there's a couple of ways to look at this. First of all, there is the safety, like you mentioned. What's the safest in terms of contact, non-contact? And firstly, for me, the first thing that came to my mind was looking at sports on how like physically active you have to be. Like football, you're running around the pitch for 90 minutes, whereas something like maybe cricket, you're not doing as much running as often.
A few more breaks.
Yeah, exactly. There's breaks in between. So but yeah, it's kind of hard, that question. It depends on the person themselves and how comfortable they feel. Um, I'd say, oh, trying to think of this.
It is a
Ooh,
difficult one. I reckon safety, safety, obviously. Best in terms of safety, minimal contact, but it's whatever you enjoy, or non-contact, whatever you enjoy the most. I would say for me, cricket I enjoy it the most, and I've never been hit in that area. Touch wood, um, but you never know. Running non-contact, athletics non-contact.
yeah. Cycling.
Yeah,
Maybe even something like tennis. If you've got the fitness going, something like tennis. Although I don't think the tennis ball is likely to hit you in that area. Badminton maybe
yeah.
is a better option than tennis. So it just depends on your own preference, to
There's
be honest.
loads of sports you can play and choose to play. Have a look at the transplant games list. There's loads on there that's all safe to play. Worst, again preference, but I'd go out on a limb and say probably some form of martial arts contact.
I
If
didn't even consider that, but yeah, I think you're definitely right on that one.
if you want safety, MMA is probably not the best way to go. I'd even argue rugby, but again, I'm not built for it, so d- the doctor's probably the best person to ask. They can advise you, but if you do want to make yourself as safe as possible, if you go to herokey.co and use the code ThanksLewis050521, you can get $20 off the Hero Key Kidney Shield and help protect yourself even more from whatever sport you're going to do. I've even started wearing it for batting recently, and it's just, as my confidence has improved, I'm able to lower the bulkiness of the pad over my new kidney. Started battling in that. I can run more, I can move more. So if that's something you're interested in, go over to herokey.co and use the code thanks Lewis 050521 for $20 off the Hero Key Kidney Shield, or click the link in the show notes and that'll take you straight there and apply the discount automatically. Thank you for sending the question. As I said, if you'd like to send in a question for future podcasts, make sure you're following Transplant's Take on Sport on social media. As I say in the intro, all the links will be in the show notes. Let's go on to your kidney transplant then. You said you were on dialysis for a while. How long were you waiting for a kidney?
For me, myself, there was, first of all, once I started dialysis, my family went through the testing to donate to me. My mum ended up being the most likely match. So she was actually through the process of going through the tests. She wasn't far off finishing. She was only about maybe 6 months away. But then I was put on the transplant list uh, not long afterwards, just to try and give me other options. And then, worst case scenario, my mum was free to donate down the line in case anything happened. So I was actually on the transplant list for only 3 months when I got my transplant. So I was actually very lucky. Um, so I was put on about the May time, and then I went and got the call on the August. So I wasn't waiting too long, but overall I was on dialysis for just over 2 years before I had my transplant.
3 months isn't long to wait on the transplant list. It's got to be one of the shortest I've seen in terms of kidneys. Considering your family were tested, was it a hard decision when the call came to take the one that had come in rather than waiting for where did your mum pass the test, or was she still going through it?
She was still going through, but she was towards the end of it. I think for me, it wasn't too hard of a choice because, first of all, the way I saw it is, the sooner I get a transplant, the sooner I can pursue my life and get on with things. Because on dialysis, I would get up at lunchtime, probably go on a short walk at some point in the day, and that was about as much as I left the house. So I had no life at all. And the way I also saw it is, worst case scenario, if I took this kidney and it didn't last, my mum was always open to donate to me
Yeah,
the next time round. She would still be able to go through the test, and I know that option would still be available. Whereas if I took my mum's kidney and it happened, then I'd be kind of out of backups then. So as soon as that call came through, I think it was a no-brainer to kind of accept that kidney and go forward with it.
it makes perfect sense. Now you said it. I think it's all about quality of life, isn't it? I think anyone would jump at the chance to take the transplant and try and get their life back on track rather than sitting on dialysis waiting, thinking, "My mum still got a few more to go." And if anything happened that meant she didn't get through the tests, would you be thinking a lot about, "Oh, what if I accepted that call?"
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's another thing that crossed my mind is she yet still had a couple tests to go through. Anything could have happened in those tests. She could have passed, but she could have failed. And like you said, if she failed and had missed on that opportunity, who knows when the next opportunity could have come.
Absolutely. Did the transplant go smoothly, sort of straight after and in the days, weeks afterwards?
Immediately, no, it didn't actually. It didn't actually kick in till about day two. So the first night, I actually had to have emergency hemodialysis because the kidney hadn't, like, quote unquote, woken up yet. So my kidney function was still very low on the first night, and obviously because I hadn't had my dialysis the night before, uh, I was at a point where I need some sort of kidney function to keep going at this point.
Yeah.
So they had to. This is all in the same day as having my transplant.
Wow.
They had to put a emergency neckline in, and on the evening I had a emergency hemo. Luckily, about lunchtime the next day, we started seeing more and more improvements in my kidney function at that point, to the point where they were like, "Okay, it's comfortable now. We can carry on the normal procedure." So I was only in for the 6 days. So that's typically about average, I think. So other than the first day, everything else went pretty smoothly.
You got out fairly quickly considering that it didn't wake up straight away. Your hospital stay was the half of what mine was. And every time I speak to somebody else, I think my story is really boring and it's straightforward. But is it normal for the kidney not to kick in straight away?
I think it depends on. I mean, I'm no expert here, so don't take this literally, but I think it kind of depends on what sort of transplant you have. Like, because mine was the what's it called, I can't say it,
Cadaveric donor?
cadaveric. That's it. It had to come uh across the country, so we found I was coming from the other side of the country. So I think based on how long it was out of a body, because it was must have been about almost 24 hours by the time I had mine.
Yeah,
Um, so I think the longer it had been out of a body, the longer it would have taken to kick in. Is my thought process. But like I said, I'm no professional, so don't take that literally. So I think that's what I put it down to. But I think it's a different experience for everybody.
absolutely. You hear some kick in as soon as it's put in and the catheter bag starts to fill up. Some people, I know other people, other than yourself, who it's taken a few days or a few hours to wake up, get going, and start doing what it should be doing. In our position, I know the doctor said to me that 6 months recovery before you get back into sport. And again, from talking to other people, I know that varies, so don't take that as gospel. Go on what your doctor says. Um, but after that 6 months recovery for if yours was the same for both of us, not long after that, bang, pandemic hits and we're stuck into lockdown and we can't we can't really use the transplant for a lot other than day to day life. And from reading things that you've put online, I know it hasn't been a smooth ride for you since your transplant. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got it was pretty smooth sailing, like I said, up until about 3 months in, and then after about 3 or 4 bloods, we could see the kidney function dropping and dropping and dropping, up until about the 30%. So it was about 45, 50 at its best. So it got to about 30%, and they were like, "Okay, let's try it. Let's do a biopsy. Let's see what's going on here." That's when they found out the FSGS had started scarring the new kidney
Ooh.
pretty much only 3 months afterwards. So at that point, they put a long-term neckline in, which I still have to this day. Um, they started plasma exchanges or plasmapheresis. Um, so basically, because it's an autoimmune disease, it lies within the antibodies in my bloodstream. So taking the plasma and the antibodies out and replacing it with artificial, logically, that's a source of treatment for FSGS, which I was having 3 times a week for the most part, almost like hemodialysis, but it was only about an hour each time, so it wasn't as intrusive. Um, for the most part, it was working to the point where I was on it monthly, but it started getting worse again. So it was kind of varying. But I've been on 3 times a week in the last, like, at the start of the year, and it doesn't seem to be improving at this point. So I'm at this point, at this moment in time, where I've been referred to the low clearance clinic again to prepare for dialysis. Um, and I think the plasma exchanges are due to finish very soon. So I'm due to see the dialysis team at the end of August and see where to go from there. But it's looking like the plan for dialysis isn't going to happen for quite a few months yet. So it's just preparations at this point.
You've been through quite a lot over the last few years, and I think the mental side of this is important. How have you dealt with what you've had to go through over the last couple of years? Because you get the big high of the transplant, and then as that starts to come back down again, and you're heading back towards where you don't want to go, how do you keep yourself going and pick yourself up?
So I think my focus is as long as I've got something to focus on and there's something I can still do when I'm not very well, that's where my main like motivation comes from. So this kind of blends quite nicely into what I've been doing during lockdown, particularly is so I've been started live streaming on Twitch and making YouTube videos to try and raise more awareness towards kidney disease using those platforms. Um, and it's something I've really been enjoying. So I've been almost doing it for about a year now. I started it just at the end of summer in lockdown. So it's something that I've that's kept my motivation going, and it's something that I know I can continue when I'm on dialysis and everything. So knowing it's something I'm enjoying, something that I can still pursue no matter what happens, it's keeping my motivation going. That's the main sort of motivation I'm getting.
It's clearly going well because what a link that was from one topic to another. You've saved me a job there.
Sorry, that's kind of a shameless plug in a way.
Absolutely fine. It was what we were going to come on to next. I think a lot of people have become more creative over lockdown, trying to think of things to do just to be productive. And you've done it with YouTube, Twitch. How would you describe the content you're producing? And let's split it into Twitch and then YouTube.
Yeah, that's the best way of doing it because it's two separate things, to be honest. So on my Twitch, it's more of a gaming platform. So typically, I'll play games, speak and engage with the audience with it being live. So for people that don't know Twitch, it's a live streaming platform where people tend to live stream them playing games where they'll show their face, speak to the audience, play games. Typically, people are interested in playing watching the people that are like top game of their whatever they play, which isn't my case. But for some people just get the enjoyment out of the entertainment side of
Yeah.
things. So it's a platform I can use to raise awareness for kidney disease. It's gaming, so it's something I've always been interested in. It's something I enjoy doing. Um, the main source of starting it was my main source of entertainment when the times I was off school a lot, the times I was in hospital after surgeries or not being well. So Twitch was a very main part of my childhood growing up, watching the top streamers, using it as a source of entertainment because there's only so many times you can watch Antiques Roadshow and all of that on the mid-morning TV.
Dickinson's Cash
So
Under the Hammer in the attic is
yes,
the
Homes
pointless
Under the Hammer,
tipping
all of
point.
that. It's only so many times you can watch those. So that's what's kind of pushed me because it was always something I thought I want to try and do, see how it gets on. But I've always been quite a shy person. But it has definitely brought a more confident side out of me for sure. So going back to Twitch, Twitch is something I use to I game on and engage with the audience, discuss kidney disease for the people that ask. So my Twitch, for people that want to know, it's twitch.tv/blur statics. So it's BLURRSTATICZ. I tend to stream on that Mondays to Fridays. But on the other side of things, on YouTube, there's definitely more kidney disease based and lifestyle based rather than the gaming side of things. So I just go under my name, Kieran McLean. Um, I started off by posting like informative videos about kidney disease. First of all, what it is, my story with kidney disease, like medication I take, types of dialysis, etc., etc. And I try to branch off from that point to the point now I've started this series called Transplant Recipient Tries, where I'm trying several different sports or hobbies. So my first one was trying football. Bearing in mind I hadn't kicked a ball for about 5-6 years at that point, so that was an interesting one. And I've since then I've done baking, yoga, and I tried a branded versus non-branded. So
YouTube
it's
trends.
yeah, so YouTube trends, I have to try and fit into the algorithm at some point. Um, so I might as well mention this now. The next one it was supposed to be this Friday. Well, what are we on today? I've lost track of the
It's Friday
third.
today.
It's Friday, so yeah, it was meant to be this evening. However, it's just been too hot to record, so it's probably going to be next week. I am going to try and do a mini Olympics one to try and fit in with the Olympics starting
Nice.
today of recording. It's starting today as we record. So that's going to be the next one for next Friday. So feel free to keep an eye open for that one.
And we'll link your channels and your Twitch in the show notes. So depending on where you're listening, that might be above the podcast, below it. And these also go out on YouTube as well. Indirectly, they just get uploaded there automatically. So if you want to watch on YouTube or you know anyone who doesn't have access to a podcast app, take a listen on YouTube. Podcast app's probably better. You can listen to it on the go more easily. But yeah, you can listen on YouTube as well. I think we've we're of an age where as Rob Beckett would say, we're older than YouTube, but we've grown up on YouTube. It's only about what 15 years old. We've grown up watching it. Do you take inspiration from other people you've seen into sort of how you'd stream or how you set up your videos?
I think that's definitely a key part. The audience of most things tend to focus on key parts of, especially how people engage with their audience and entertain. So it's like I was saying on YouTube with the branded versus non-branded. There's certain trends you try and fit into or take part in to try and get like interest a certain audience. Like with that video in particular, people don't have to have any relation to kidney disease or transplant to pick
Yeah.
up on that video, yet they might end up finding some extra information out about kidney disease and transplantation through my channel. So there's certain ways that I'm trying to branch out to engage different audiences and try and get them involved in the awareness of kidney disease.
Think it's helped as you've branched out, as your confidence grown at the same time that you've been able to go from talking about sort of what you know, what you've been through, to moving more into a sort of, I mean, they're all going to be entertaining, but moving more from informative to sort of straight entertainment.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you looked back at my first YouTube video I put out, that was only at the start of this year, I think. Only no more than 6 months ago. You can tell the confidence gain from that first video to my most recent one. Um, Luckily for me, I picked it up quite quickly, and I've still got a long way to go yet with that. But it's trying to get used to the aspects of speaking to a camera rather than a person, and trying to speak to, like, entertain people that aren't there as you're recording and they're going to find out later down the line. So it's a very unusual, like something you don't typically experience in typical human engagement. But it's one of those things at the same time that the more you do it, the more you get used to it. So it's just trying to overcome that barrier at first and try and build your confidence as you go along.
Absolutely, it is strange. I've been on stage through magic and entertainment, but moving into sort of YouTube in a way now, filming something which I'll plug it. Why not? Um, Filming with the World Transplant Games Federation for their new online series, Transplant Hub Conversations, which is very similar to the vibe of this podcast. It's very similar topics. It's inspiring stories from people around the world who've come through an illness to have a transplant or not a transplant, maybe some live donors on the way. I hope I can say that. It's inspiring stories. People who've had transplants and they're now making a difference with the sport they're playing, enjoying their life. So if you want to see that, it's over on the World Transplant Games Federation YouTube channel. And if you follow them and me on social media, you'll find out when more of those are out. So going back onto the on YouTube and Twitch specifically, you're actually doing a fundraiser soon to celebrate your 2-year kidney transplant anniversary.
That's correct, yes.
Do you want to tell us a bit more about that and how you think you might look with a skinhead?
So basically, I started the fundraise for it a few months ago. Just mainly the reason for that was to try and make sure it was all prepared and working before I actually went forward with the live stream. So basically, on my 2-year kidney anniversary on the 20th of August this year, I'm doing a 12-hour live stream on Twitch, on my my Twitch channel. Sorry, Player Statics, as I mentioned before. It'll be 12 noon BST till midnight. So basically, I'm going to be doing my typical streaming where I play different games, maybe bring in a couple other streamers to play along with me, and I've got a list of forfeits for certain targets and milestones we hit, which at this moment, surprisingly, I did not expect it at all. We've already kind of crushed all the forfeits before I've even done any of the stream.
You're going to be having fun.
Yep. So we've got things on there, such as eating bugs, which it's probably something that's probably not a sensible idea, but it's only going to be a pinch, and it's for a good cause, so it's not going to do me harm.
What does the doctor think?
Sorry.
What does the doctor think?
As long as I'm taking like, I'm not going to be like eating mountains of them, then I should be fine. It's literally just going to be a pinch of them. So yeah, we've got something like bugs, to like a random costume I'm going to have to wear on stream, to getting my makeup done, little silly things like this. And towards the end, there's going to be getting my wax, my
Your weg's laxed.
my wax waxed, my my legs waxed. Sorry, to getting my hair dyed blue, or sprayed blue because of the penultimate, the ultimate one at the end, as Lewis mentioned before, is getting my head shaved, which we've already hit that target now. So we're over the £1,000 mark at the moment. So just want to say, everyone who has donated to this point, thank you so much. It's going to a great cause, and hopefully we can pursue this in the future once again.
How can people donate? I'm sure I'll put the link in the show notes again. And are you going to set more targets for forfeits, or are you going to stick at the shaved head?
So first of all, I've got a Virgin Money Giving page open, which I'm sure Lewis will leave in the notes of the podcast.
Yep.
So as you get on there, there should be a donate button. You can choose whatever amount you want, minimum being £1, but anything means anything. So you can donate, you can leave a message with your name on there, or you can stay anonymous. It's entirely up to you. The Whatever money is being raised is going to be split 50-50 between Kidney Care UK and Kidney Research UK. As for the forfeits, I think it has definitely crossed my mind that I am going to have to prepare some more forfeits or something to encourage people to reach a higher total, as I feel like at this point no one has any reason to donate. So I'm definitely before the stream, I'm 100% going to be planning some more forfeits and make sure people are encouraged to donate.
Well, good luck with the stream, and if you do think there's more forfeits, but I suppose I do want you to do them because it'll raise more money for the charities. But let's see what you can come up with. Good luck with the stream. Good luck with the YouTube and Twitch going forward. What are your goals for it going forward?
So at this point in time, I just want to try and my main focus is see if I can try and encourage people that may not know much about kidney disease to be a bit more informed about it, as everyone experiencing it, we all know it's a hidden illness. So to any typical person, we might look a very healthy person, but there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes on. People will not notice that you're ill unless they spend maybe an evening with you or a night with you. So it's just to try and get that understanding into the world that although it's a hidden illness, it is quite a serious, well, I say quite, it's a very serious thing, and it can make people very ill. So my main focus is to try and just encourage people to learn a bit more about kidney disease and what actually goes into it.
And if you want to learn more or check out Kieran on YouTube and Twitch, all the links will be in the show notes. So go and have a look at that. Kieran, one more question before we go. It's the one I ask everyone. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone facing a transplant?
Ooh, that's a good one. So first of all, whether it's a planned transplant or one that's a call like over the transplant list, first of all, the first thought is don't be afraid. Yes, it is a surgery at the end of the day, but it's only initially typically for a person, it's about a week you're in hospital. And from that moment and forward, as soon as you've had your transplant, you immediately feel better. So it's just the first week is the hardest point. From that point onwards, it gets easier and easier. And in the long run, it's 100% worth it. Your life, you won't remember the last time you felt that well. So although it's maybe it is a scary process, just think about afterwards it's going to be worth it. So don't get too worked up about it, and you'll have the people around you to support you along the way.
There we go. It's the operation transplant. It's always for the best, and it is going to benefit you going forward. Kieran, thank you for coming on the podcast. What a pleasure to have you on. As I said before, go and check out Kieran. His links will be in the show notes. Go and follow him on YouTube, Twitch. Have a look at his videos. Give him a subscribe, a like, follow on Twitch. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Yep, follow. And if you join the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, follow. I'm sure I've said that in the intro as well. And why not tell your friends about it? Tell your family. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, that is the most used app to listen to the podcast. It would mean a huge amount to me if you could rate it 5 stars on the show page, as that really does help more people discover it on iTunes. And if you're feeling really helpful, if you leave a 5 star rating, if you left a review with that as well, a 5 star review, I will read out all 5 star reviews at the end of the podcast in this section here. Again, if you'd like to see more from me, if you go and check out the World Transplant Games Federation YouTube channel, you can see me presenting Transplant Hub conversations, which will see more chats, more stories like this, which I hope you enjoy. So go over there and subscribe to them as well. Thank you very much for listening. Please stay safe and well. Look after yourselves. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Lewis Daniels, and you've been listening to Transplant's Take on Sport.